Tankers, welcome back to another one of my videos. I am Blitz, and today I'm going to be talking about how to run German super heavies. Now, I've already made my first video on how to run heavies, which was on the Russian pike nose, and I made a poll, and you guys wanted to see the German super heavies next. Make sure you keep an eye out on my polls if you do want to keep up on my latest videos that are going to be coming out. If you want to vote on any of them, make sure to keep an eye on that. But ignoring that, yes, this video is going to be on the German super heavies, specifically consisting of tanks like the VK100, the Maus, E75 TS, E100, certain tanks like that, not really like the KPZ or the Tiger II, because they have very, very different characteristics to like a Maus. And that's because their armor profiles are very, very contrasting. So in this video specifically, I'm just going to try and make it easy for everyone by covering the tanks that you can see all have very, very similar armor profiles, which is just going to make it easier to explain how to run these tanks specifically, other than telling you different ways to run the different tanks. I'll definitely make a follow-up video how to run tanks like the Luva and the Tiger II and the Kampfpanzer. I'll definitely get into that. But in this video specifically, I'm going to be talking about the super heavies like the Maus. Now, I'm also going to be doing these battles live. If you've seen my first video on how to run heavies, you already know this by now. But if you haven't seen this and you're new, I'm actually going to be doing these games live for you guys because I really feel that it shows a better way of expressing how to run the tanks in-game. You know, when I'm running this VK100P, if I'm showing you a replay that was from 2 days ago, I'm showing you, first of all, a replay that I picked that was excellent, where everything worked out well. And there's probably 100 or 50 games that I played that were awful, but you're not able to see, and I'm only showing you the one game that worked out. And that's really not fair to you guys, because you're not seeing the 99% majority of the games. You're seeing the one lucky game where I got stuck in that Goldilocks condition, and everything worked out accordingly for me. That's not how the average game works out. So in this video, I'm going to be doing the games live because, you know, most YouTubers, as I said, they're just going to show you the best game they can possibly get out, and that's really not realistic on how the average battle goes. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you just the average battle for me, what's going on through my mind, how to read an enemy lineup, and everything in between. But I'm going to stop you guys from waiting because it's already been about 2 minutes, and we're going to get straight into battling with the VK100-01P. Now, right off the bat, the first and most important thing about the German super heavies is the speed of them. They only go 20 kilometers per hour. And that is a big, big thing about these tanks because that means you have to know where you're going right off the bat. I'm reading the enemy lineup. I see they got the 34, they got two 34s, they got the Luva, and those are really their only heavy tanks. However, on this map, I really can't be pushing the hilly side because my tank is just going to fall apart. And I noticed that I do have actually some very, very heavily armored tanks on my team, as you can see behind me, like that Tortoise. So hopefully my team is just going to push in town with me, and hopefully the enemy will as well. I will be surprised if they don't, but also the 34s can use the gun depression on the other side. Now, the reason that your speed is very, very important on the VKs and the Mauses and even the U100 is because if you pick the wrong spot to go at the beginning of the battle, that's it. That's where you're going. For me to get to where that Pantera is right now, it will literally take me the entire game to get there. And by then, my entire team will have lost the battle. So by making the decision to push my tank this way, I have pretty much solidified a decision, and luckily we were able to bounce that shell. You saw me angle the tank there, but because we pushed this way, we've pretty much solidified that this is where we are going to be playing the rest of our game. So as long as our team doesn't fall apart on the other side, we should do fine. Now, hopefully this T-34 is going to pull out, which he does. Now, the main thing you want to do in the VKs is you actually want to get into a pretty good side-scraping position. Now, that ISU got the unluckiest shell I've probably ever seen, and his teammate is not being the nicest to him right now. Oof. But I'm going to keep constantly side-scraping the tank in a position like this, so that way when the enemy team does push on me, they're going to be dead. However, now that I see our team needs to push, I'm going to try and clear this Luva. Then I'm going to push on this 34. Now you can see I'm actually driving at him on an angle like this, and what that does is it makes my lower plate a lot harder to hit, and I do that pretty much 90% of the time when I run a VK or a mouse, as I'm always going to drive my tank at an angle. I never want them to be dead on looking at my lower plate like this. I want to drive at them sort of at like a 25-degree angle, I'd say, where I can still manage to go forwards towards them, but it's going to hide my lower plate and make it a much, much harder target to hit. And that's really going to save you many, many hit points if you do it correctly. Now, this is a pretty bad predicament right now because I'm pretty much surrounded on all corners. However, this 34 is the main guy I'm going to try and take out here. See if we can snap a shell into him. No, we cannot. However, I'm going to be pushing on him, see if we can take him out. Hopefully that WT is not going to murder us. And the main thing you want to do in German Super Heavies is you need to know when to push. If you're not pushing with your team, or you're just holding the enemy line, if you watched my IS3 video, you watched me say that you need to hold the line in an IS3. You don't really want to push, but you also don't want to sit still. In the German Super Heavies, you need to know when to push, because you are the basic building blocks of your team. If you don't push, your team will fall apart very, very quickly. You can see there, because we were able to take out that T-34, we're now able to deal with this bat chat, compared to where, you know, if we hadn't dealt with that 34, he could have taken out that tortoise. Well, he still might take out the tortoise, but it would have just been a lot different scenarios. And if I had just tried to side scrape and bounce shells from that 34, it probably wouldn't have worked out as well. You know, that 34 would have still been alive, he would have been shooting at our teammates. You definitely need to know when to push in a VK100 O1P. And the thing is it's pretty risky when you push in a tank like this, is because if your team doesn't go with you, you will die immediately. Now, you might have some scenarios where you can easily push on the enemy tanks, like that 34. I wasn't really worried about him. He was going to die either way. But there's some scenarios where if you push and your team doesn't, they will pretty much get you screwed and you'll just die. And one of the really important things you need to do in the big German Super Heavies is you need coordination. So my suggestion is, before you do push in a tank like this, say, you know, guys, let's all push as a group, because that's going to help you out. Now, I'm not sure how that shell even missed. That's kind of disappointing to me. That is one of the big downsides of the Germans, is, well, at least the VK100 O1Ps, it has a very, very inaccurate gun. However, we did snap him, so I'm happy. We broke 3,000 damage. Team still finished him off, and you can see I took the shots for the team, which therefore helped them at least get some shots off. By then, though, I really didn't care about my hit points because I knew we were going to win either way. But you can see here, we did pretty good, 3,000 damage. That's really good for this tank, actually. And you can see we did receive 4 hits. Unfortunately, we didn't really get stuck in a scenario where I could show you the armor profile of the tank super, super well. But you can see the tank did perform pretty well in battle. And I'll do one more in just this tank just to see if I can get in a better scenario to show you the armor profile really in work. Now, the WT, that is a tank that you really want to stay away from, especially most tank destroyers in the VKs. Not necessarily tanks like the Mouse or the Mauschen, but in the VK100 O1P specifically, if you're running up against a tank like an RHM and they've got heat rounds, which they 90% of the time are going to shoot at a tank like this, they can actually go through your upper plate with heat. So one of the things you never want to do is just drive right towards the enemy like you saw me do there against that WT, because his heat rounds are just going to fly straight through the upper part of my hull, and that'll be it. I'll pretty much be dead. So you want to try and angle your tank, side scrape it, and do the best you can. Now, when I said it's very hard to side scrape in the, Russian tanks in most scenarios because you have to be pretty much next to a building to do that, the German tanks are actually very, very easy to get stuck into a side scraping position because, as I said, pretty much all you want to do, your main objective in the VK and the Mouse and pretty much all the German Super Heavies is just to hide your lower plate. The turret is important, but the lower plate is a much, much easier target to hit, you can see, than that turret. And this tank does have a cupola, but there's not much you can really do about that. You only go 20 kilometers per hour. So the best thing you can do is just hope for the best against the cupola, wiggle it back and forth, But you definitely want to hide that lower plate. And the nice thing about the Germans is they actually have a pretty quick traverse speed. You can see here, I can actually turn this tank, I think it's actually, what, 30 degrees a second, 40 degrees? It's very, very quick for the size and weight of the tank, which is nice because you can wiggle it back and forth, you can get some funky shots, so that is pretty good towards the tank. Now, unfortunately here, I read the lineup, I saw they had the M6, the IS-3, the T-32. They had tanks that looked like they were going to go this way. However, they didn't go this way, which is bad for me because I'm probably not going to be able to help the team a crazy ton. However, hopefully we're going to be able to snap that guy. Yes, we are. And you can see there's 628 damage. One of the really nice things about the Germans is they do have big, big guns. And that's actually a very, very good factor for a tank like this, is because giving you big gun gives you a lot more flexibility when fighting against enemy tanks. You can see literally 2 shells and we've done 1,300 damage. An IS-3 that would take 3 shots. And the reason that's so empowering is because people aren't going to want to push on you when you... Ooh, that was not a good shot there. But people aren't going to want to push on a tank that does 460 damage. That's quite a lot. You can pretty much roll 575, I think, as a max roll at this tank. When an IS-3 can only roll 500. Hopefully, I'm going to snap him. Now you can see immediately, just going to try and angle my tank. It's never going to try and get him to angle at my lower plate. And I'll even just try and show you an example right here where I'm going to pull out on this M6. But again, I'm going to try and hide that lower plate. Unfortunately, our shell went high. Never want that to happen. But you can see here I'm still trying to hide that lower plate the best of my abilities. And you can see there he hit me in the track, which is exactly what I wanted to happen. And everything worked out to plan. Now, hopefully, yes we do. We slam the shell right into him. And now we're going to back down the hill. Again, try and hide that lower plate, side scrape it on this rock here. And he really, again, cannot penetrate us. So that's a really good example on how you want to run your tanks, especially the German Super Heavies, is just hide that lower plate. That's pretty much all you want to do. You can see here, this IS-3 has no chance of getting through the lower plate. Now, he did manage to penetrate us through the turret, but by now, I really don't care that much about my hit points anymore, because he's going to die. And you can see here, we were able to do our job. We still picked up quite a bit of damage. I'm happy with 2,300. We got some very nice high explosive shells, and the nice thing about the Germans is the high explosive on this tank does not 400, it does 600 average damage, which is a ridiculous amount. Now that shot there, that one was a little bit annoying. Not sure what our WT is aiming at. But they do have nice high explosive, which is really good for taking out light tanks or little tanks that try and get behind you, is you can put a very, very big hurting on them. And the other nice thing about high explosive that does 600 damage and the much larger caliber gun is, let's say there's an enemy tank side scraping like a, let's say there's an IS-3 side scraping and he's got 160 health left. Now, I can actually shoot that high explosive right at the side of his tank if I have any part of him exposed, or he's going to try and pull out to shoot me because, he has a better angle than me. I can actually shoot him with that high explosive and probably kill him very easily, taking that 150 right off of him. Because the nice thing about the Maushin and the Maus and the VK-168 and all those tanks is 600 high explosive damage is very, very good for dealing splash, because you're probably going to deal around 200 on average to any tank you hit. And that is quite a lot of average damage. Now, the E75 TS is a little bit different than most of the other German Super Heavies. It's a little bit quicker, but because it is quicker, it has a much, much worse armor profile. Now, it does have good gun depression, and that is one nice thing about all the Germans, is they pretty much sit around 8 degrees. However, this one is being at 10 degrees. This one's a little bit different, though, so I'm only going to show about one game in it, because it's really not like a true German Super Heavy. It's a little bit different. Now you can see here, as soon as I shot, I tried to angle my turret to the best of my abilities. They did manage to shoot me right through. But I'm trying to use my gun depression here. You can see I'm still hiding my lower plate behind this ridge line, and that's what I said you definitely want to do in tanks like this, is just hide your lower plate. That's all you have to do really in the German tanks. Then you can work on angling your turret. That is another very important thing. Angling the turret will save you a lot of hit points when you get up to the higher tiers, like a mouse. If you don't angle your turret, that could effectively cost you a lot of your hit points. You can see, though, That RHM bounced right off our upper plate because it's around 280 millimeters thick in this vehicle. And I'm not sure what's shooting at us at the back there. It's got to be like that SPIC or something. But, you know, he's being a little bit annoying. Not much we can do right now, though. I'm actually going to try and push in. We know that their whole team is pretty much cornered. As you can see, our entire team has pushed everywhere else. So that is quite an odd lineup the enemy team has decided to do here. They pretty much got themselves pincered as an entire team. But again, I'm going to try and hide my lower plate to the best of my abilities here. You can see I'm hiding it using my gun depression. That's something you really want to do in the German heavies, is just try and hide your lower plate. Use the most gun depression you really can. And the nice thing about the bigger alpha, like the VK100, is you can really easily trade shells with enemy tanks. You know, 460 damage, you can go up against any other tank and pretty much just decimate them. Now, I did over-angle a little bit there against that Lycan, but you can see we got a lot of hit points in this tank. We're going to do just fine, which is pretty good. Nah, I'm not going to snap him, but push right over this ridge now, get a little bit more damage out. You can see this game was pretty nice indeed. We were able to break 3,000 damage, we were able to do our job, we did hide the lower plate, and that was just a really good battle to get stuck in. And really any map where you can use your gun depression, try and use it. But definitely don't use it if you know that the enemy team's not going to push where you use your gun depression. But on this map specifically, I knew that on Dead Rail, I knew that the enemy team, because they had all of those heavies, they were going to push to the heavy side, and I didn't think they were all going to corner themselves. But I knew that they were going to push to the heavy side, so I made that guess, and I pushed my tank. I used the gun depression where the gun depression best works. That was an excellent example of the best map choice you really want to get stuck in. And that tank's a little bit different, though, as I said, than like the VK100, because it's not as slow. It's got a much higher average damage per minute, which is much different than, you know, like the Mouses or the VK100s. However, it still is classified as a super heavy. It's got that armor profile. And imagine if I was in a tank like a VK100 on that battle, we probably would have taken about 0 damage. However, we would have had to drive over to ridgeline just a little bit more to get those extra 2 degrees of gun depression in work. Now this game, you can see that they've got the KPZ 57, the Mouse. You know, they're not really full on heavies. Now the Mouse is completely, but the rest of their tanks are more medium-ish, and because of that, I would normally push towards the medium side. However, I've noticed that my team is completely pushing heavy side, and because of that, I have to push this way as well. But normally I would like to go the other way, see if I can get rid of their mediums first, then deal with the slower tanks. However, it looks like the enemy team pushed as well towards this way, so it might work out in the long run. Now, something did spot us there. Hopefully it was not that FV2 and 5B183. Now, I know that KPZ was last spotted. Wait, are we going to be able to snap a shell into him? No, we are not. Thank you, Mr. Grill. Nice thing about my E100 is I do have a lot of hit points. You can see that Grill pulled out to shoot me. I'm not sure if he wanted to shoot me just because of my clan tag, or he just wanted to shoot me in general, but he pulled out to shoot me. And lost quite a bit of hit points in return because of that. Now, let's see if we can load a... Oof, I almost got it in there. Now you can see I'm going to try and get my tank into a side scraping position here. See if we can spot anybody that's going to pull out. You can see my complete lower plate is hidden because of the little bar there. So that is one nice benefit. So, let's see if we can... Well... Not doing great in our shots right now, and we could have easily snapped that 62A. That's a shame, but we're trying the best we can. Definitely don't get frustrated if you miss your shots, because you are going to miss a lot of them. It's just how the game works. You can't hit all of your shots. The 62A just really wants to get hit by me. There you go. And the nice thing about it is when you do miss your shots, but you do finally penetrate one, they do hit hard, especially in a tank like the E100. If you can use it correctly, your shots will definitely scar the enemy, you know, take off quite a bit of their average hit point pool. We are getting hit here quite a bit, though. Let's see if that 62A wants more. Yes, he does. I think we might actually die here, which is not good. This wasn't a good battle, and that's just because I didn't want to push in that spot. You saw I had to go with the team. I really don't like this map, especially for a tank like the E100, because you really don't have the ability to work with your armor profile that well. You're this big boxy tank, and when you're in a big boxy tank, you're really not going to do that spectacular if you can't get it into a good position. And you saw this game, we really did not get it into a great position. Because of that, we were shot in the sides, all over. That grill popped out. He snapped us. You know, we were just really not able to do anything to save us in this battle. However, we're still going to try and get a standout here, do the best we can. That's the best you can hope for. I'm going to try and angle my tank. You see me here. I'm trying to angle it the best of my abilities. WT actually managed to die. Ooh, that was a lucky bounce. And you can see we turned this looking defeat into a very, very potential victory. Now this mouse is probably going to be reloaded by the time I pull out. However, you can see we snapped the shell into him, and now I'm going to try and bait a shell out. I'm going to angle my turret like this, try and side scrape to the best of my abilities. You can see right there, that's exactly what you want to do. Now, I said that these tanks have the big high explosive, so I'm just going to aim an HE right at his turret, and boom, there you go. 231 damage, and we killed the mouse. And that was a pretty good example of what to do. And as I said, we have hit points. If you miss your shots, it's fine in a E100. We did hold the line. They were not pushing on me, even though we got hit by the grill. You saw I made mistakes. But we still managed to come out with 3,000 damage. We definitely helped the team out. And we received quite a lot of hits. We received 9. So even though we got penetrated for half of them, we still received a lot of hits, which in return was taking hits for the team. You saw I survived with only 200 hit points. And as I said in the beginning of this video, you want to take hit points. If you aren't taking hit points for your team, if you're finishing off a game in, let's say, the mouse, if you're finishing off a game in the mouse with full hit points, you are playing the tank just completely wrong. It doesn't even matter if you bounced all your shells. You should just be taking shots for your teammates. If you're in your mouse and you see your E100 next to you, or any tank next to you is getting pummeled by shell after shell and you're full hit points and you're just watching him get hit, pull out in front. Take some hits for your team. That is your job in the big super heavies. You are the team in the mouse. If you're let's say there's on dead rail, let's say right where the heavy tanks usually push around the corner, let's say that they're all waiting, both sides, they're just sitting there. Now, the enemy team, they've only got, 2 heavies there, but they've got 2 Clipper tanks, they got the AMX 50B and the 57 Heavy, and all you have is an IS-7 with you, and you're in the mouse, and then you've got a tank destroyer sitting in the back. Now, the thing that you can do in a mouse is you can just be like, okay, I'm going to drive straight out. You can tell your team, I'm going to push. And then you're just going to drive straight out, take the shots, and then your teammate is going to rush forwards, deal the damage, you're going to push in, and the enemy team is just going to be completely surprised, they're going to be rushed, and they're not going to be able to act quick enough. And one of the main super important things about running the German super heavies is you do definitely need to know when to push, because if you watched my IS video on the pike nose tanks, in that video I said that you want to really hold in those tanks and hope that your mediums are going to be able to take out the enemy mediums. Therefore, they're going to flank, and then the enemy tanks are going to be distracted. Now, the thing about the mouse is if you notice, or any big German super heavy, is when you're running it and you notice that your team is falling apart on the medium side, you can very, very easily help your team by pushing out aggressively, taking shots. I'm going to try and angle here so that this FE4005 isn't going to get a shot into us. That was actually a perfect roll. But you're going to see here, or at least in any battle, if you notice your mediums are falling apart and you really don't have a choice, you know you're going to be flanked by the enemy mediums very, very soon, you're just going to have to make a decision and go out and try and just rush the enemy team in your mouse. Even if you know you might die, it's just, it's not worth the risk to be flanked by the mediums, because as soon as those mediums do get a hold of you, you're pretty much just going to be dead, and that is the sad fact about it. Mediums are just going to tear you apart once you get stuck in a bad scenario. Now, this 57 really badly looks like he wants to go out, but he just isn't doing it. Really not much we can do here right now. Ah, come on. Somebody pull out. Well, this is a scenario where you really can't do anything, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get stuck into the midst of the battle. Maybe get some damage out here. I don't want to get hit by this 57 though, and that's a problem because you can see I'm pretty much pincered here. And there's nothing I can really do about it. Now that I'm pushing on this 57, my IS-7 behind me is probably going to shoot me. So this is a really, really bad circumstance for a tank like the Mouse. But, oh, that was a bad shot too. Not even sure how that bounced, but hopefully we're going to be able to push on this 57 heavy. I need to take him out, judging that he is one of the big bad heavies on the enemy team. So I'm going to push on him, and one of the really good things these tanks are good at is face hugging. If you can get into a good face hugging position, you're definitely going to be able to take them out. You can see here, I'm trying the best I can to face hug. We're definitely doing our job though, and I'm just going to try and back up here so I can get a shot into him. Moreover, get the... Nope, that was a bad... There you go, got another shot into him. That was my fault, though, where I couldn't get the gun there. But this 57 pretty much knows he's done. And you can see I actually positioned myself perfectly into a side-scraping spot so that when these enemy tanks do push on me, there's not much they can do to take me out because I'm already facing them. You can see, again, I'm not going to let them get my lower plate. Just going to angle my tank away from them. Now, I do just want to clear this M103 very, very quickly. Unfortunately, he just managed to back up. Maybe clear this AMX-30B. Nope. That would have been really nice if we could have, though. Especially because we need him cleared. But again, I'm going to angle my lower plate so that this M103 can't hit it. Not sure what he's really planning on doing there. Definitely don't do that if you run an M103. But you can see we are still the building block of this team. We're carrying, we're doing our job best we can. That E50M made a very poor decision there. Down goes the E50M, and you can see we still won the game. We haven't actually lost one game yet, and that's because the German Super Heavies are actually very, very influential tanks if you can get them into the right scenario. You know, if you can get a Mouse positioned in the right spot where the enemy team, you can see at the beginning I really didn't have a solid plan because I was pincered, and a couple of my shots just were not being nice to me, but we were still able to overcome the issue of the battle. We did our job. And you can see we won yet again. Now, I'm not happy with how many hit points I'd left, but if that E50M had cleared that 57 heavy, we definitely would have had our fight matched up for us. So that is one thing that you got to keep in mind is do at least try and save a little bit of your hit points towards the end of the game, because usually what I've noticed in tanks like the Mouse and tanks like the VKs is that your team's going to fall apart 90% of the time, and when they do fall apart, unfortunately, you're going to have to be the one that does the job for them. Because usually what I've noticed, and you guys are probably going to notice this as well, is when you run a tank like an E100 or a Mouse or anything like that, what's going to end up happening is your tanks like the 57 Heavy, or you'd have like an IS-7, and they're way quicker than you. You know, they're almost 3 times quicker than you, being like the IS-7. And what's going to end up happening is these tanks are going to rush up to the front of that battle, and they're just going to immediately get murdered because they pushed way too aggressive, and you and the giant super heavy who is supposed to take the shots for the heavies next to you and deal the damage and do the pushing, your team's already dead and there's nothing you can do about it, and by then your battle's over. So if you ever get stuck in those scenarios, it's definitely not your fault. Now this game here, you may be saying, well, I'm doing the wrong thing by pushing this exact spot I'm at. But I actually cannot push my E100 across because I'm just going to be pummeled by shell after shell if they have any tank destroyer sitting in that bush right there. And I know that. 90% of you guys have probably gotten smacked and smacked over and over because of pushing across there. And I really can't take the risk of doing that in my E100 because they've got tanks like the 183, they've got the WT. If any of those tanks get into position, they're going to nail me. And you want to know where the enemy tank destroyers are sitting at. If you can't figure out where the enemy tank destroyers are at, that's going to be very, very bad for your game because they're going to just tear you apart and you're not going to be able to spot them. You're not going to be able to really do anything to them. If a 183 has a shot on you, it is going to hurt bad. So you definitely want to pre-plan all of your moves in the game that you're stuck in. Now you can see here, we're doing pretty good so far. I've pre-planned where I'm going to go, and you can see our 704 just completely suicided it, and there's nothing we can really do about scenarios like that. So when you do get stuck in some scenarios, there's nothing you can really do about some of your players. You just get stuck with bad teams. Now, this prototype, ooh, now he's pushing the other way, unfortunately. That actually helped me there. Thank you, Leopard. Now, I know that they got the 54 up there, but he's going to die, so I'm not going to have to worry about him anymore. And I'm going to try and take the shots from my Leopard here, so I'm going to get into a position. Again, angle that turret. You always want to try and side scrape that turret, as that is one of the most important things in a tank like this. He over-angled his sides, oof, and we got a pretty nasty shot into his tank, actually finishing off for 1,000 damage. Now, unfortunately, that 183, even though he had a very, very easy shot into our tank, did not shoot it. I'm very surprised, actually. We're actually going to slam an HE into him. Again, as I said, you need to use your high explosive. Always use it to the best of your abilities. You can actually see I keep 10 high explosive rounds in this tank. And that's just because I know high explosive is such a useful round. It would have normally taken me 3 shells on average to take out this 183, but because of high explosive, it only took me 2 shells. And you can see that really does make a huge difference in the battle, depending on really how you play it. Now, this WT is probably going to be dead very, very soon. And this Leopard looks like he's getting nailed pretty bad as well. The WZ12 on our team is full health, though, so that is pretty good. We are actually going to pull this off. And this is going to be the last game I'm going to show you guys. I just wanted to show you a basic concept on how I like to run the German Super Heavies. You can see this game we did pretty good indeed. And there's a nice HE right into the side of that 57 Heavy there. Again, make sure you utilize that high explosive. HE is your best friend in the big caliber tanks, and if you can figure out how to use your high explosive the best, you can see we actually picked up a mastery this game, 5,800 damage. We only received 1 hit, which is unfortunate, but I knew where to push my tank, and as I said, you need to know how to read a lineup. You need to know what to do. I'm surprised my team actually didn't yell at me for pushing where I did, but you can see if you thought I was being a moron at the beginning of that battle because I pushed towards that way, you can see how much of an impact actually pushing where I did actually did towards the battle. We would have lost this game if I had pushed the other way. We probably would have. Our mediums would have died. Everybody on the other flank where I pushed would have died. So you definitely need to know where to push your tank. If you push the wrong way, that's it. Your game's over. So if you can't read a lineup spectacular, you definitely need to know what to do. And as I said, there's many, many different types of heavies in the game. If the enemy team had a mouse, I probably would have pushed it the heavy side. But because I noticed they had the WT and the 183, I knew that they could have easily positioned themselves in spots where when I tried crossing through that little valley, I could have easily gotten shot with Hesh, and that WT would have hit me, and that would have been literally my entire game. So you definitely need to know where to push your tanks correctly. You saw the enemy IS-7 really didn't know where to go, and that's the same for a couple of the tanks on our team, like that Object 704, but if you do a good job on your German Super Heavy, you can really counteract even 2 of your teammates messing up, maybe even 3 of them, as long as you're able to hold the line, know when to push, and do your job. Now, other than that, guys, I hope you did enjoy this video. It helped you guys learn a little bit about it. As always, make sure to smash that like button if you did. If you didn't like what I talked about or you didn't think this was informative enough, make sure to smash that downvote button. Let me know what I did wrong. Tell me if I should make another video informing different types of stuff in the German Super Heavies and everything else. But other than that, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe.